Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to make binding, particularly with stripe binding, because stripe binding is everywhere these days. It is an absolute favorite of mine, and I'm going to show you how to match up the stripes, and I'm also going to show you how to make the binding in general. Binding was my nemesis when I started quilting. Oh my goodness, it took me a long time and many quilts before I could get it just right. With my stripe binding, I like the stripe to run horizontal. So you gotta think, like, if this is the edge of the quilt, we're gonna have the stripe going this way. So I will be cutting this way. And I'm just gonna line up my ruler. And actually, it's best if you open up your fabric here. Adjust my cutting table. And I'm going to line it up 2.5 inches. That is what I like to have my binding cut at. It is a matter of personal preference. I know some people prefer a thinner binding and will do 2.25 inches. For me, 2.5 gives me just enough room to turn it over, but it still is overall a very thin binding. The other thing is I am left-handed, so I will be stepping in front sometimes. So I cut all my strips at 2.5 inches. I do not bother cutting the selvage off of these because when you join them, you're going to lose this part anyways, so it's just a little bit less fabric waste. I have gone ahead and cut the entire pile into 2.5 inch strips. Now let's head to the sewing machine. So to start, I'm going to take my first strip. This is the part that always used to confuse me. I'm going to lay it straight out. I'm going to take my next strip and I'm going to lay it 90-degree angle to this so you can see this way. It's going to be the opposite, but what I'm going to do is lay just in front of the selvage, right where that end meets. Then I'm going to sew diagonal from here to here. When I do so, and I fold it that way, see how the stripe matches up? Now, I usually don't take the time to match the actual stripe. A lot of people will. Doesn't bother me if when I'm sewing, you know, I cut off half a stripe or whatever. Sometimes it ends up working out exactly the same and the stripe perfectly matches. Sometimes it doesn't. But you can mark the diagonal line, and I suggest doing that when you're first starting out. I don't need to. I've done this so many times. I know exactly where I am going. So I just cut my thread. I'm going to pull it this way, and look at that. Almost an exact match, but like I said, this doesn't bother me that it is slightly off. You can definitely finagle it so that it becomes exact. Just depends on whatever your quilting personality is. So I keep scissors on the right of my sewing machine so I can trim them easily. What I'm going to go ahead and do is just cut straight that way, and then about 1/4 inch. You can definitely just do this all at the end and take it to the cutting table. And sometimes I do that. Sometimes I will take them when I cut off that tip, and sometimes I just do it here. So it doesn't matter. So now it's open. I have the next one. I do want to make sure that my strips continue going the same way. So for me, I make sure that the left side has all the extra the right side is the short side. This has the selvage part. You can see it has these holes in there. So I don't want to, even though the stripe continues here, I don't want to put it diagonal to diagonal. I'm going to go in front of that. So I'm going to take my next strip, and again, it's right sides together, like many things in quilting. I'm going to put it there. I'm going to turn it diagonal. I just have my sewing machine set to sew straight in the middle, not a 1/4 inch. And actually I do have it set 1/4 inch, doesn't matter, because I am just gonna go ahead and sew straight back regardless. Cut my threads, I come over here, and this one you can see definitely off, again, up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and trim this next piece. And I will just do that the entire way through on the binding. And this is how I'm going to assemble all the binding. So I'm just gonna keep going, push this off. I actually usually have a cup here on the side for my scraps, but apparently I have left it on my cutting table. So I'm gonna go ahead, take the next piece, and continue doing this. We'll meet you back here when I'm done. So I just did this one, and check that out. It is a perfect match. Accidents, like I said, sometimes it just lines up. So now I go ahead and I iron the whole thing in half. I just start at one end and fold it, and then I continue to go the entire way down and just move it as I go. When I get to an opening, I will simply just press the seam open at the parts where they join up together. So I'm going to just continue to press here all the way along the end, and then I move it over. Here is where I was saying I just finger press this open, and I can even just push it down there. Makes it easier. And then I'm gonna fold it over. So that just makes for a really flat seam. And I never understood why we join it at an angle, which is on the bias. Why do we do that? Why can't we just join two pieces together? And it's because of this seam right here. Instead of this whole thing coming here, which would be, right, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, and then it's just gonna be together, we actually have half of this here and half here. So it just provides less bulk. A lot of things in quilting, we're doing it to get flatter seams, we're doing it to get less bulk where things come together. It's all pressed and ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and then add it to my pre-made binding collection. Since I do not have this quilt top ready yet, it is still to be quilted by a long armor. So when that comes back, it'll be all ready.